The return of Saquon Barkley looks imminent. What does that mean for Devontae Booker moving forward? Who's trending up? Who's trending down? Week 11 running back stock watch. That's coming up next. Heading into week 11, there are some running backs that are really trending up. Well, that tends to be the position that has a lot of turnover due to injuries, and that is what is happening in Green Bay, where A.J. Dillon looks to get a start in week 11, and that is good news for anybody that has already added him to their roster. He's available in about 42% of leagues right now. That's right, only rostered in 58% of ESPN leagues. And right now, this guy has short-term RB1 upside. And what does that mean? Well, Aaron Jones has been diagnosed with a mild MCL sprain, diagnosed to be out about 1 to 2 weeks. I would expect about 2 weeks. I believe the bye coming up after that, which gives you about 1 to 2 weeks of RB1 upside with A.J. Dillon. We have seen what this guy can be when he gets touches, and as the lead back in Green Bay, he will not only get used between the tackles, but also in the passing game, where he was very good in week 10. So A.J. Dillon right now, passing game upside, a guy that has scored 39.4 PPR points in the last 3 weeks. So he's got a lot of upside even with Aaron Jones in the lineup. Now Aaron Jones out of the lineup, which gives him even more upside. This guy is a guy that has enough upside to literally be RB1 on the week. He also has the ability to be more of an RB2, but like I said, RB1 upside for this guy for the next 1 to 2 weeks. So short term, but that is a really nice spike in value, and right now out there in 42% of leagues. So if you are really needing a running back and you're still in the running for playoffs, he's out there. This should be the number one guy on your list to go out there and get. If not, this is definitely a guy that you should be thinking about deploying in week 11. He has been phenomenal when giving opportunities, and he is in obviously a good offense, not necessarily as elite as it was last year, but a very good offense, willing to run the ball, and he, I would assume, get multiple opportunities inside the red zone come week 11. Another guy that's getting a little bit of a bump in value, I'm not going to say this is not a huge spike, but it is a spike because this guy was on a massive downtrend, in my opinion. Just an absolute massive downtrend, especially based on what we expected out of Antonio Gibson coming into this season. And he has been nothing what we expected out of this guy, especially with the hype that came out of Washington football team's camp this training camp. But he has been obviously dealing with the injury. We saw the touches decrease. We saw Jarrett Patterson getting more work heading into that bye. And coming out of the bye, a very competitive Washington team not only had a puncher's chance in their game with Tampa Bay, but they led this game, I believe, start to finish, defeated Tampa Bay, and a lot of that had to do with how much work Antonio Gibson got. Now, granted, a lot of the reason why Antonio Gibson got so much work is because they were leading start to finish. But the fact is, this guy got 26 touches out of the bye. That is very encouraging. Like I said, Jarrett Patterson had 10 touches for the Washington football team heading into the bye. It looked like very bad news for Antonio Gibson moving forward. Now, was 2 weeks enough for his shin to heal? I don't know. He wasn't particularly efficient, but we also know that running against the Tampa Bay front is no joke. That is a very good front seven. So that was already a tough matchup for Antonio Gibson. And he did overachieve by finding the end zone twice. When you look about what his productivity was, it was not impressive. He needed, and I mean needed, those touchdowns. but he found a way. Washington football team found a way to get this guy into the end zone twice. They stuck with them the entire game. We thought maybe this would be a J.D. McKissic style game because Tampa Bay was going to run away with it. Not at all. My opinion, Tampa Bay probably overlooked these guys a little bit coming out of the bye. They did not look hot. They did not get Mike Evans incredibly involved. That was incredibly disappointing, but I will not get into that. The Bay front seven that's been very good. He's still only averaging 2.7 yards per carry. So, like I said, efficiency wasn't there, but he had 26 touches out of the bye. All of those things, good sign for a little bit of an uptick. What's that make him? That makes him a flex. It makes him a low-end RB2 still. This is not a guy that all of a sudden is going back into a high-end RB2, RB1 status because he got 2 touchdowns. We have to hold our horses there. But he does, like I said, have that low-end RB2 upside where any given week, something magical can happen and he can give you RB1 numbers, but that's mostly what you expect out of a flex. So Antonio Gibson moving back into that flex low-end RB2 status after falling into the weak flex bench status that he was at going into week 10. And we all know what I thought of him going into week 10 because I harped on that guy pretty good. I have a magical power of telling fucking people they fucking suck at football and then having them, do the fuck you game right after that. So I harped on Antonio Gibson really bad. He came back, gave us 2 touchdowns. I was telling James Conner how terrible he was for the first 4 weeks of the season. That guy just started coming out, finding the fucking end zone every fucking game. So if I start harping on a guy really hard, I am at the same time almost trying to get that turned around for him. Because I do seem to have a magical power to tell somebody they suck and then have them come back and show me why they were drafted where they were. Moving on, RhamondreStevenson, 28% rostered. So this is a guy who's in the must-add territory. I don't think he's in the must-play territory. Unless Damian Harris isn't going to play again for the New England Patriots, which there is potential there for Harris to miss week 11. And if he does miss week 11, then we are not only in the must-add but must-play territory for RhamondreStevenson because he does something that Harris doesn't really do. He gets a little bit involved in the passing game. He catches some passes. He's a little explosive in that role. And then he's also explosive in the running game. We found that over the last couple weeks. Now, he's over the last 2 weeks, this guy's got 40 PPR points. That's absolutely insane. He's got 36 touches. He's averaging over a point per touch. That's pretty damn good for a running back. At a guy that you're expecting double-digit touches out of, especially if Damian Harris isn't going to be there. Now, if Damian Harris is there, now we're talking about a guy that I could see getting anywhere from like 8 rushes to maybe 12 rushes and a couple touches in the passing game, and he still has some decent upside. But right now, if Damian Harris isn't there, still dealing with a concussion, that moves him into that running back 2 territory, a guy that can show out. He's in a run-heavy offense. Mac Jones, competent in this passing game, better every single week. New England looking better every single week. I hate saying that because why? Mac Jones was fucking available for the fucking Denver Broncos, and we went with Patrick Surtain, who, by the way, got his ass fucking schooled by a guy he got to play against every fucking week in Alabama in practice. Devontae Smith torched that guy for a couple touchdowns, and instead of having Mac Jones in Denver, we got Teddy Bridgewater and Patrick Surtain. Not to say Patrick Surtain's not going to be a fine fucking player in the NFL, but there's one fucking need the Denver Broncos have, and that's a fucking quarterback, and by God, Mac Jones looks fucking competent, and that is good for the entire offense, including RhamondreStevenson. When we add Damian Harris, obviously, this could lower Harris's value. We'll talk about that next week if he returns, or if he returns this week, and then we have a little bit of more of a sample size after we've seen both of these guys have good games this year. Both of them been very productive running backs. And the problem with New England is we've seen this in the past where you kind of see one running back do well for a little bit and another running back do well for a little bit. And we never see that stable primary back in the backfield. And we kind of thought that was going to be Harris, but the emergence of RhamondreStevenson adds question to that. It also obviously raises the value of Stevenson, and a guy that needs to be owned or rostered in more than 28% of leagues. This is a guy that we got to be excited about coming back in week 11, and that is Saquon fucking Barkley, guys. SQB coming back again. Holy shit. This guy is always coming back, right? And he'll give you some moments, and hopefully this is the last time he's coming back this year, and obviously the last time that he gets hurt. So hopefully we have this guy for the second, well, almost the second half of the season. For the last 7 weeks of the season, hopefully we have Saquon Barkley out there for everybody who invested a late first or a second round pick in this guy. And unfortunately, that hasn't paid out with the hoping that he was going to return to that top 5 running back upside. It hasn't happened, but if you were smart enough to put Devontae Booker and handcuff him on your team with Saquon Barkley, which that to me was a must do if you were going to have such a high investment in Saquon Barkley. But if you were smart enough to do that, it's paid off. Booker's been awesome. He's been awesome. So I expect Saquon Barkley to come back and be pretty fucking awesome. You know, he should be coming back week 11. I very much believe he's coming back week 11. Reports said that he was out there on Monday, that he looked good, he looked explosive, he was sharp out of his cuts. So I expect him out there in week 11. And obviously, when it comes to injuries, these expectations can easily be dashed. We talked about that last week when I recommended Devin Singletary because I believe Zach Moss was going to be out with that concussion. Well, Zach Moss came back and they did what they do and they vultured each other, and neither one was particularly great. So Saquon Barkley, I believe, will be coming back in week 11. I believe this is a guy who's got 20 plus touch upside even in week 11 coming back from injury, because if they're going to bring him back, they're going to bring him back full go. They waited through the bye, which tells me they just wanted to make sure he was healthy because they didn't want to ease him back into work. This has been a very primary back-centric offense. When Saquon was back here, Booker got very little work. When Booker's been the primary ball carrier, it's been Booker as the primary ball carrier. He has been splitting work the way they do in a lot of other NFL teams. So Saquon Barkley, I expect to not only be heavily involved in the running game, but heavily involved in the passing game when we know how many injuries that this receiving core has dealt with, how the tight ends just haven't quite lived up to expectations, and really one of the most explosive players, if not the most explosive player on this offense being Saquon Barkley. You got to get him the ball as much as you can. So, big time spike, obviously, back into that RB2 with RB1 upside stock for Saquon Barkley into week 11. Awesome news for anybody who has Saquon Barkley rostered on their team. And final guy right now for a uptick, and we talked about him a little bit last week, so I'm not going to talk about him very much, but that's D'Onta Foreman for the Tennessee Titans. He's about 1% rostered, I believe 1.7% rostered in ESPN leagues. Still a speculative ad, but he got up to 13 touches in week 10. He still looks to be the most explosive running back in the Tennessee backfield as they're still trying to find a way to replace Derrick Henry, and obviously you can't, but they're still finding a way to make that a very good offense. And so you still have an opportunity to get a running back who still has a path, and right now looks to have the best path to being the best running back in this backfield. The only thing that's really missing from him right now is the goal line work. So far, they have really leaned on Adrian Peterson in the goal line work. But D'Onta Foreman is running with the most explosiveness of these running backs between the tackles. He is a little bit involved in the running game. We haven't seen Jeremy McNichols involved in this offense at all the way we thought he would be with Henry gone. And so it really does seem to be a race between Foreman and Peterson. And Peterson, to me, he looks old. He looks old. He looks like a slow power back. And so he still, to me, has the power, but he doesn't have speed to go with the power. I don't think he really brings a lot of explosiveness to this offense. And I think the more they watch the film as a coaching staff in Tennessee, the more they're going to see explosiveness out of Foreman and not out of Peterson. And as they did from week 9 to week 10, maybe transition more of those touches to Foreman. So I think he got up to double-digit touches, 13 touches in week 10. He, I think, is a guy that has upside to get into that 16, 18 touch range, which in this offense is something that's very tasty and 99% available for fantasy managers. So there's the final guy trending up. Some guys trending fucking down. Fucking Myles Gaskin. You fucking stink, bro. At least every other week. And last week, he was a put up or shut up. It was his off week, right? We've seen him all year. Either he's really good or he's really bad. And it's literally every other week when you go and look at his game log. He's either scoring double digits every week or the next week, it's single digits. Double digits the next week, single digits the next week. Through the entire fucking year so far. And then if you actually go look at the schedule moving forward, by God, does it not set up for that to continue to fucking happen all year long? I think this guy still finishes the year as a top running back and a low end RB2, right? Anywhere from RB18 to RB24. But it's going to be, he got there on every other week status, because when you go and look at the schedule, this coming week looks like a start. It looks like you want to start him in week 11. Do you really want to? Probably not, because you're just looking at how much you don't want to trust him based on his lack of consistency. But the one thing he has been consistent is every other week he's scoring, and this is the week to deploy him. But this guy is trending down because he is turning into a spot flex, a guy you don't necessarily want to really play outside of good matchups for him. And like I said, that's an every other week type of thing. When you look at his schedule moving forward, he's got the Jets in week 11. Like I said, obviously you're looking at the Jets, what running backs do against them. He is getting the most amount of touches in Miami. So you're going to be like, yeah, I guess I got to fucking deploy Myles Gaskin. Do you like it? Fuck no, you don't like it. But you're like, God damn it, it's the fucking Jets. So, okay, I'm going to deploy him against the Jets. Then you go look at week 12 and you're like, oh, fuck, it's the Panthers, man. That fucking sucks. Do you want us to deploy him against the Panthers? No, you don't. You're like, fuck, bench. The week after that, week 13, the Giants. And the Giants actually aren't that good against the run. You're going to look at that matchup and you're going to go, he was good in week 11 against the Jets. He was bad in week 12. We're back to week 13, which means it's an odd week, which means he's going to fucking explode. So now Myles Gaskin trending down into that spot start status, which he kind of was, but he was still kind of trying to hang out with the RB2s, right? He was still trying to be like, hey guys, I still want to be your RB2. I'm in there most weeks. But now he's in there about 50% of the time moving forward, and he's a spot start after this. So, unfortunately, a guy that's on the worst rushing team in the league, and you just can't rely on him. And that is Myles Gaskin. These next two trending down, and that has more to the fact that these guys were in there as replacement guys, right? You have Darrell Wiliams for the Kansas City Chiefs, 83% rostered, and he's kind of moving into that Clyde Edwards-Helaire handcuff, desperate flex play territory, because he still will be a little bit evolved when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back, and it sounds like he has a good chance of coming back week 11, not guaranteed by any chance. So if he doesn't come back, then he has one more week of like prime time like usage, right? But if Clyde Edwards comes back, all of a sudden, Darrell Wiliams becomes like a desperate flex play, somebody that if you're a Clyde Edwards-Helaire manager that maybe you want to acquire before the trade deadline. But we have basically an imminent return of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And let's face it, Clyde Edwards-Helaire averaging over 4 yards a carry this season. Williams is averaging about 3.5 yards a carry this season. So there is a big difference there when you're talking about 0.7, almost a yard a carry more per carry. That's a big difference. I mean, if you're going to give him 20 carries in a game, that's an extra 20-ish yards, right? So that's a big deal. He will play over Darrell Wiliams, even though Darrell Wiliams has been good for fantasy managers during Clyde Edwards-Helaire's injury. But he should be coming back. I expect him back week 11. That makes Darrell Wiliams a guy that you don't really want in your lineup unless you're in a deep league, desperate play with a possible opportunity to get in the end zone because he's on the Kansas City Chiefs. But right now, Darrell Wiliams trending down hard. And that's the same thing for Devontae Booker. 69% rostered. This guy is now in the high-end handcuff status because, like I said, I expect Saquon Barkley back in week 11. If he doesn't come back this week, we kind of have a problem. But from what I understand from reports, expect Saquon Barkley back. So we have an imminent return of the starter, which means that Booker goes back to that reserve role. And he had a minimal role as a backup. He never had more than 5 touches as the backup for Saquon Barkley. Like I said earlier, when I was talking about Saquon, this team likes to lean on its primary back. That is bad news for anybody that's been riding on Booker for the last couple weeks, unless you've been riding on Booker because you drafted him and drafted Saquon, in which case you put them together and you have a pretty damn good running back for most of the season. And Devontae Booker, unfortunately, going back into that reserve role, and I don't even think he's in that same status of desperate flex play that Darrell Wiliams was in. Booker is going back into the role of, I might get 5 touches in a game. Might. And that's not good enough for any manager in any format to deploy him unless you are literally just like, he is a warm body on a team. I'm in a 24-team league. We have like offensive player position. We got a flex position. We got 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. And you're like, but you're in a 24-team league. Yeah, no, it sucks. Like, that's the type of play, the league that's deploying Devontae Booker moving forward with Saquon Barkley coming back. I would like to thank you for watching. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will be joining Mike Lynch and Rashad Taylor on the Fantasy Scramble on Sunday morning for some start-sit questions. You can send in your start-sit questions to 503-250-1080 on Sunday morning. Once again, on Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, half hour leading up to kickoff, we answer those start-sit questions. You can send them in, and you can listen live on the Odyssey link that I will have in the description below. Again, thank you for watching, and make sure that you check the stock watch for Week 11 wide receivers that I will also have upcoming